What if I told you that history's greatest philosopher was actually a master manipulator? That the man we celebrate as the father of Western philosophy used psychological tactics so sophisticated they would make modern debaters jealous? Meet Socrates, 470 to 399 BCE. To most, he's the wise sage who taught us to question everything. But today, we're pulling back the curtain on the dark side of the Socratic method. These aren't just teaching techniques, they're psychological warfare disguised as philosophy. I'm going to reveal 5 manipulation tactics Socrates used to demolish his opponents in every single debate. By the end of this video, you'll never look at philosophical discussion the same way again. But first, if you're ready to uncover the hidden psychology behind history's greatest minds, smash that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. Tactic number 1, the Feigned Ignorance Trap. Socrates perfected what we now call Socratic irony, pretending to know nothing while systematically destroying his opponent's arguments. Picture this. You're a respected politician in ancient Athens. Socrates approaches you, humble and deferential. "O wise one," he says, "I know nothing about justice. Could you teach me?" You're flattered. You begin explaining your views on justice, confident in your expertise. But here's the trap. Socrates isn't asking because he doesn't know. He's asking because he knows exactly where your logic will crumble. Each innocent question is a carefully placed explosive designed to detonate your argument from within. In Plato's Meno, watch how Socrates demolishes a slave boy's confidence about geometry. "Do you know what a square is?" he asks innocently. By the end, the boy admits he knows nothing. But Socrates knew the boy would fail before he even started. This tactic is so effective that modern lawyers still use it. They call it leading the witness. Ask the right questions in the right order, and you can make anyone contradict themselves. Socrates didn't invent this by accident. He weaponized curiosity. The genius? Your opponent thinks they're teaching you, when actually you're teaching them how little they know. It's psychological jujitsu, using their own confidence against them.
Tactic number 2, the definition death spiral. Socrates discovered that if you force someone to define abstract concepts, they'll eventually talk themselves into a logical corner they can't escape. Imagine your lackeys, a respected Athenian general. Socrates asks you, "What is courage?" Simple enough, right? You answer, "Courage is standing your ground in battle and never retreating." But Socrates pounces. "What about tactical retreats? Are those cowardly? What about a doctor who stands firm against a patient's pleas to stop painful treatment? Is that courage or stubbornness?" Now you're forced to refine your definition. Courage is intelligent endurance. Socrates attacks again. But what about foolish endurance that leads to victory? Is that not courage? Each refinement creates new problems. Here's what's happening psychologically. Socrates is forcing you into what cognitive scientists call definitional regress. Every definition requires more definitions, creating an infinite loop of uncertainty. Watch any political debate today. When someone asks, "What exactly do you mean by freedom?" or "How do you define success?" that's pure Socratic manipulation. The person asking usually isn't seeking knowledge. They're setting a trap. The brutal truth? Most concepts we use daily, love, justice, happiness, are impossible to define perfectly. Socrates knew this. He used our definitional weakness as a weapon, making intelligent people appear foolish by demanding precision where none exists.
Tactic number 3, the analogy attack.
Socrates was a master at using seemingly innocent comparisons to completely reframe debates and trap his opponents in their own logic. In the Republic, Socrates faces Thrasymachus, who argues that justice is whatever benefits the stronger party. Instead of attacking this directly, Socrates uses an analogy. Is a doctor's skill measured by how much money he makes, or by how well he heals patients? Thrasymachus agrees that a doctor's worth comes from healing, not profit. Socrates then springs his trap. Then shouldn't a ruler's worth come from serving citizens, not exploiting them? The analogy has completely flipped the argument. Here's the psychological manipulation at work. Analogies bypass our critical thinking. When we agree with a simple comparison, our brains assume the complex situation must work the same way. Socrates exploited this cognitive shortcut ruthlessly. Today's influencers use this constantly. Running a country is like running a business. The brain is like a computer. Society is like a family. These aren't just explanations, they're attempts to control how you think about complex issues. But here's Socrates' dark genius. He could shift analogies mid-conversation. If comparing rulership to medicine didn't work, he'd switch to comparing it to shepherding, or navigation, or craftsmanship. Each analogy highlighted different aspects, keeping opponents off balance. The victim never realizes they're being manipulated because analogies feel helpful, not hostile. You think Socrates is clarifying the issue, when actually he's controlling the entire framework of the discussion.
Tactic number 4. The emotional switchblade. While Socrates preached about reason and logic, he was actually a master emotional manipulator who knew exactly when to push his opponent's psychological buttons. At his own trial, facing death, Socrates could have shown humility. Instead, he told the jury that Athens should reward him with free meals for life because of his service to the city. This wasn't philosophical courage, it was calculated provocation. Socrates weaponized pride. He'd praise someone's reputation, then systematically destroy their expertise. You're known throughout Athens for your wisdom about justice. Then came the questions that revealed their ignorance. The higher he built them up, the farther they fell. But shame was his favorite weapon. In ancient Greek culture, public humiliation was worse than death. Socrates knew this. He'd conduct his interrogations in the agora, surrounded by crowds, maximizing his victims' embarrassment. Sound familiar? Today, we call it getting ratioed or being canceled. Socrates invented public intellectual shaming 2,500 years ago. The audience wasn't there to learn, they were there to witness the destruction. Notice how Socrates switched emotional registers. One moment he's the humble student, the next he's the relentless prosecutor. This emotional whiplash kept opponents confused and reactive, unable to maintain their composure. Modern psychology calls this emotional flooding. When someone's emotions are overwhelmed, their logical thinking shuts down. Socrates didn't just ask questions, he orchestrated emotional breakdowns disguised as philosophical inquiry.
Tactic number 5. The logical labyrinth. Socrates' final and most sophisticated manipulation was creating logical mazes so complex that escape became impossible. In Euthyphro, Socrates encounters a man prosecuting his own father for murder. Euthyphro claims this is pious. Socrates asks, do the gods love something because it's pious, or is it pious because the gods love it? This creates what philosophers call Euthyphro's dilemma. Either answer leads to problems. If gods love pious things because they're already pious, then piety exists independently of gods. If things are pious because gods love them, then piety is arbitrary. Here's the manipulation. Socrates presented this as a genuine question, but he knew both answers were problematic. He wasn't seeking truth. He was creating an intellectual prison with no exit. Lawyers use this today with false dilemmas. Politicians do it with loaded questions. The technique hasn't changed. Present two options, both of which serve your agenda, and watch your opponents struggle to find a third path that doesn't exist. The genius of the logical labyrinth is that victims think they're engaging in honest inquiry. They don't realize the maze was designed before they entered it. Every path leads to the same destination, their intellectual defeat. Socrates wasn't just asking questions, he was architecting logical traps. The questions weren't neutral tools of discovery, they were weapons of intellectual warfare.
So there you have it, 5 manipulation tactics that made Socrates nearly unbeatable in debate. Feigned ignorance to disarm opponents, definition death spirals to trap them in logical quicksand, analogy attacks to control the conversation framework, emotional switchblades to destabilize their composure, and logical labyrinths to ensure no escape. Does this make Socrates evil? Not necessarily. Maybe he genuinely believed these tactics served the pursuit of truth. Maybe exposing ignorance was more important than being polite. Or maybe he just enjoyed winning arguments. But here's what matters. These techniques are still being used today in boardrooms, courtrooms, classrooms, and Twitter threads. Now that you know them, you can recognize when someone's using them on you. The next time someone uses feigned ignorance, asks you to define abstract concepts, throws misleading analogies, manipulates your emotions, or traps you in false dilemmas, remember Socrates. Remember that questions aren't always innocent. If this video opened your eyes to the hidden psychology of persuasion, you need to watch my breakdown of Machiavelli's manipulation tactics next. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the dark side of history's greatest minds. Remember, the unexamined life may not be worth living, but the unexamined argument isn't worth losing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Which manipulation tactic surprised you most? Let me know in the comments below.